You know what's genuinely wild about Australian property regulations? There are towns where you can legally live in a shed on your own land and retire for less than £500 per month. Not a house, not a cabin, a literal shed. And it's completely legal if you know which councils allow it. We've been conditioned to think retirement requires a proper house, a mortgage, or significant rent, and substantial ongoing costs, that you need hundreds of thousands in superannuation to retire with any dignity. But there's this whole alternative retirement strategy happening in rural Australia that nobody talks about. People buying cheap land for $20,000 to $50,000, putting up a shed for another $20,000 to $30,000, living completely legally for total costs under £500 monthly. That's roughly 1,000 Australian dollars. It's not glamorous. It's definitely not for everyone. But it's real, and it's happening right now. So I went extremely deep into council regulations across Australia. Planning laws, shed dwelling permits, tiny home regulations. About 20,000 forum posts from people actually doing this, living in sheds, shipping containers, and tiny homes legally. Conversations with council planning departments about what's actually permitted versus what's theoretically prohibited. These 12 towns have councils that either explicitly allow shed dwellings or have regulations permissive enough that people are doing it successfully without issues. The costs are genuinely absurd. Land from $20,000 to $50,000. Shed from $20,000 to $40,000 depending on size and quality. Total upfront cost, $40,000 to $90,000 for a place to live forever. Ongoing costs include rates, power, water, food, transport. Total may be $800 to $1,200 monthly, depending on lifestyle. That's retirement on $15,000 to $20,000 annually. That's achievable on age pension alone with buffer. Let's get into it. And number 7 will surprise you because it's actually close to a major city. At number 12, Jamestown, South Australia. A mid-north town with permissive planning laws and an established shed-dwelling community. Population approximately 1,400. About 200 kilometres north of Adelaide, roughly 2.5 hours drive on decent sealed roads. Land prices are approximately 20,000 to 40,000 Australian dollars for a rural block on the town outskirts, with water and power access already connected or available. Jamestown Council has developed relatively permissive regulations around habitable outbuildings on rural residential land zoned appropriately. You cannot just plonk a shed down in the middle of town residential areas, but on rural blocks over 2,000 square meters outside the town boundaries. The regulations are surprisingly flexible if you meet certain basic requirements. The key is genuinely meeting habitability standards, not just putting up a farm shed and calling it done. The shed needs proper insulation installed for walls and ceiling. Adequate ventilation that meets building standards. Basic plumbing connection if town water and sewer are available, or an approved septic system if not. Power connection certified by a licensed electrician. It needs to be genuinely livable and safe, not just a storage shed with a mattress thrown in. People are currently living in well-fitted out sheds on rural blocks around Jamestown, legally and successfully. The council does not actively encourage or advertise this option, but they do not prohibit it if you meet the requirements and submit proper applications. A quality insulated shed from Ranbuild, Stratco, or similar manufacturers costs roughly $25,000 to $35,000 for something genuinely livable. That is typically 50 to 70 square meters of floor space. Add a solar panel system, $5,000 to $10,000 depending on capacity. Water tanks, $2,000 to $5,000 for adequate storage. Basic interior fit out including kitchen and bathroom fixtures, $5,000 to $10,000. You are looking at total shed and equipment costs of $40,000 to $60,000 plus the land purchase. Monthly costs living on the age pension work out approximately as follows. Council rates may be $1,200 annually or $100 monthly. Power costs are minimal with adequate solar, which can generate excess most days. Water costs are minimal with tanks and occasional refills, maybe $200 annually. Food budget $400 to $500 monthly for one person eating simply. Transport maybe $200 monthly for running a basic car. Total monthly outgoings are maybe $900 to $1,000, or roughly $450 to £500. Translation: for $60,000 to $80,000 upfront investment that is achievable on modest savings, you own your housing situation completely and permanently, and you can live ongoing on roughly $1,000 monthly or £500. That is genuinely achievable retirement on the age pension alone, with a comfortable buffer for unexpected expenses. The trade-offs are real and substantial. You are dealing with isolation from urban centers, summer heat that regularly hits 38 degrees Celsius and above, basic living conditions that will not impress anyone, but you own it outright with no landlord, no mortgage, no rent ever. Financial stress essentially disappears from your life. I talked to a man in his late 60s living in a shed outside Jamestown. He bought his land for $30,000, put up a 60 square meter shed for $35,000, and fitted it out for $12,000. His total investment was $77,000 using his super payout. He lives on a pension of $29,000 annually. His costs are roughly $11,000 annually, including everything. He saves $18,000 per year just in case. He said it is not glamorous, but he sleeps soundly, knowing he will never face eviction or rent increases. Would you genuinely live in a shed for complete financial freedom and security? Comment honestly, because I am curious what people think. Number 11. Orroroo, South Australia. Small rural town with a pragmatic planning approach. Population approximately 600. About 300 kilometers north of Adelaide, roughly 3.5 hours drive through agricultural regions. Land prices range from 15 to 30,000 Australian dollars for rural residential blocks outside town boundaries, sometimes even cheaper for blocks further out. Cheap is a fair description. Orroroo is genuinely tiny, with about 600 people and a slowly shrinking population. The council takes a refreshingly pragmatic approach to what people do on rural land they own. Official regulations exist on paper, but practical enforcement is minimal if you are not causing obvious problems, making complaints, or creating hazards. Shed dwelling on rural residential land happens, and it is basically accepted as reality. The council attitude seems to be, if it is structurally safe, if it is not highly visible from main roads creating eyesore complaints, and if neighbouring properties do not complain about it, they are genuinely not interested in stopping it or causing problems. Accepted is the right word here. You need a septic system or a composting toilet that meets health standards. You need a power connection or a proven solar system. You need a reliable water supply via tanks or a bore. Beyond meeting those basic health and safety requirements, enforcement is notably relaxed and practical. Health compliance matters. The land itself is cheap, even by rural standards. $15,000 to $20,000 gets you a decent-sized rural block with reasonable access. A basic but properly insulated shed runs $20,000 to $25,000 for something livable. A solar system and water infrastructure may be $10,000 combined. Total investment is roughly $45,000 to $55,000 all in. Total cost remains low compared with conventional housing. Monthly living costs on pension are genuinely minimal. Rates are under $1,000 annually, or roughly $80 monthly. Power is essentially free, with adequate solar generating surplus. Water is tanks, plus occasional refills, costing maybe $150 annually. Food and basics may be $800 to $900 monthly total, including everything. Minimal monthly outgoings make this viable. To translate, Own your housing situation completely for under $60,000 total investment and live ongoing on $800 to $900 monthly, including absolutely everything. That is under £400 monthly cost of living. Totally achievable on UK or Australian age pension with a significant buffer remaining. Own your costs, not a landlord. The isolation is extreme and real. About 600 people in the whole district. The nearest city is Adelaide at 5 hours drive. Medical services are a basic clinic only. Shopping is one general store. Entertainment is essentially zero. But if you genuinely value financial security and independence over social life and convenience, the mathematics work beautifully. Isolation is the trade-off. At number 10, Peterborough, South Australia. Historic railway town with affordable land and surprisingly flexible regulations for quality dwellings. Population approximately 1,600, about 250 kilometres from Adelaide, roughly a 3-hour drive on Highway 1. Land prices are 20,000 to 40,000 Australian dollars for rural residential blocks with services already connected or readily available. Peterborough Council officially allows ancillary dwellings on appropriately zoned rural residential land, and this category includes well-constructed sheds that meet proper habitability standards. The regulations are written flexibly enough that quality shed conversions done properly are explicitly permitted under planning rules. The town has seen retirees successfully using this strategy over recent years. Buy affordable land, install a quality shed that meets standards, fit it out properly with certified trades, and live legally and cheaply without issues. A proper compliance setup costs moderately more here because council scrutiny and standards are genuinely higher than places like Orroroo. You need a quality shed from a reputable manufacturer, not a budget farm shed option. Insulation is absolutely mandatory and will be checked. Plumbing must be done by a licensed plumber and certified. Electrical work must be done by a licensed electrician and properly certified. The council cares and checks. Land costs around $30,000 for a decent block. A quality compliant shed runs $35,000 to $40,000 from a proper manufacturer. A solar system and water infrastructure cost $12,000. Professional fit out and trade certifications cost $10,000. The total investment is roughly $85,000 to $90,000 all in. But monthly costs remain genuinely low despite the higher upfront investment. Rates may be $1,500 annually or $125 monthly. Power is minimal with a good solar system, and water comes from tanks. Food costs are $400 to $500 monthly. Transport is about $200 monthly. Total monthly outgoings may be $1,000 to $1,100 or £500 to £550. In short, higher upfront cost, but still well under $90,000 for complete ownership with legal security. Monthly costs around £500 to £550. This is still achievable on a pension if you have modest savings to provide the upfront capital. Peterborough has actual services that matter. A hospital with an emergency department, a medical clinic, a Foodland supermarket, a post office, and basic shops. You are not in total extreme isolation, like truly remote options. There is some community and services present. Number 9. Quilpie, Queensland. Quilpie is a remote Western Queensland town with minimal planning restrictions and council support for residents. Population is approximately 600. It is about 1,000 kilometres west of Brisbane, a roughly 12-hour drive through increasingly remote landscapes. Land prices run from $10,000 to $25,000 for blocks on town outskirts or in less developed areas. Quilpie is genuinely, seriously remote, and the council's attitude toward dwelling types is relaxed and pragmatic. The council's primary focus is on attracting and retaining residents in any way possible, not enforcing strict housing codes that might discourage people from moving there. Shed dwelling on your own land is generally accepted and supported if the building is structurally safe and you are not creating health hazards or problems for neighbours. The council genuinely wants people choosing to live in Quilpie. They are not going to create bureaucratic obstacles or quibble about housing type if you are adding to the population base. The land itself is absurdly cheap even by remote Queensland standards. $15,000 to $20,000 gets you a decent-sized block with reasonable access. A decent quality insulated shed runs $25,000 to $30,000 for something genuinely livable with proper specifications. A solar system is essential here because grid power may not reach all areas. Budget $8,000 to $10,000 for an adequate system. Water tanks are essential infrastructure. Budget $3,000 to $5,000 for adequate storage capacity. Total setup cost is roughly $50,000 to $70,000 all in. Monthly costs are close to rock bottom. Rates are minimal in such remote areas. Power is essentially free after the solar setup investment. Water comes from tanks, requiring occasional refills. Food costs are notably higher due to extreme remoteness because everything gets trucked in from hundreds of kilometers away. Budget $1,000 to $1,200 per month, including elevated food costs. Translation: total setup under $70,000 provides complete ownership. Monthly living around £500 to £600, including everything. Extreme isolation in exchange for financial freedom and security. Quilpie is truly remote in ways city people do not fully comprehend. Brisbane is 1,000 kilometers away. The nearest significant town is Charleville, 200 kilometers away. Medical services are basic clinic only. Serious medical issues require flying to Brisbane. This is proper outback living for people who genuinely want or can handle that level of isolation. The town survives on sheep and cattle, grazing industries, plus some opal mining. It is hot and dry. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 40 degrees. But if you can handle the remoteness and heat, the financial accessibility is extraordinary. At number 8, Monto, Queensland. An affordable rural town with a flexible council approach and an established process. Population approximately 1,200. About 500 kilometers northwest of Brisbane. Roughly 6 hours drive through agricultural regions. Land prices range from $25,000 to $40,000 for rural residential blocks, with varying service availability. Monto Council formally permits relocatable dwellings and temporary dwellings on appropriately zoned rural land through proper application processes. A well-constructed, manufactured shed that meets building standards explicitly qualifies. The approval process is slightly more formal and more bureaucratic here compared to more remote options. You submit building plans and specifications. The council planning department assesses the proposal against standards. If your proposal meets the requirements, you receive formal approval. It is more bureaucratic than relaxed enforcement, but the process is workable and navigable. People are successfully getting shed dwelling approvals by properly meeting the requirements. That includes appropriate foundations or footings, insulation that meets standards, adequate ventilation, plumbing installed by a licensed plumber, and electrical work by a licensed electrician with certification. Land costs around $35,000 for a decent block with services available. A quality shed with the proper specifications and certifications runs $40,000 to $45,000 from a reputable manufacturer. A solar system costs $8,000. Water tanks and septic system installation cost $10,000. The total investment is roughly $95,000 to $100,000. Monthly costs include council rates of approximately $1,500 annually, or $125 monthly. Power use can be minimal with an adequate solar system. Water comes from tanks. Food budget about $500 per month. Transport about $200 per month. Total monthly costs may be $1,100 to $1,200. That translates to a higher upfront investment of around $95,000 to $100,000, but monthly costs remain only £550 to £600. It may be doable on pension if you have the initial capital from savings or superannuation. Monto has decent services relative to its population. A medical centre with a resident GP an IGA supermarket, a post office, a primary school, and community services. It is less isolated than truly remote options while maintaining affordability. Number 7. Upper Lockyer Valley, Queensland. Surprisingly close to Brisbane, with permissive rural regulations for affordable living. Population approximately 5,000, spread across the broader regional area. About 120 kilometres west of Brisbane, roughly 90 minutes drive. Land prices run from $40,000 to $80,000 for rural blocks, depending on location and services. Lockyer Valley Regional Council allows secondary dwellings on rural properties that can include properly constructed sheds. Brisbane is only 90 minutes away. The regulations are strict but navigable. The shed must meet building codes. Insulation is mandatory. Plumbing must be proper, and electrical work must be certified. If you do it right, it is legal. Land is more expensive because of Brisbane proximity, but it is still achievable. $50,000 to $60,000 will get you rural land. A quality compliant shed costs $45,000. Solar and water systems cost about $15,000. The total cost is roughly $120,000. Monthly costs are as follows. Rates $2,000 per year. Power is minimal with solar. Water comes from tanks. Food about $500 per month. Transport about $250 per month. Total may be from $1,200 to $1,300 per month. In other words, the higher upfront cost of $120,000 buys you a location 90 minutes from Brisbane. That proximity gives access to capital city services, family, and hospitals while living for from £600 to £650 per month. This is the least isolated option on the list. You are close to civilization while living very cheaply. At number 6, Augathella, Queensland. A remote western town desperate for residents. Population approximately 400. It is about 800 kilometres west of Brisbane. Land prices run from $10,000 to $20,000 Australian dollars for town blocks. Some blocks are basically free if you commit to building. The Augathella Council wants people living there. They are not going to hassle you about dwelling types if you are adding to the population. Shed dwelling is accepted and happening. As long as it is safe and habitable, the council is supportive, not obstructive. Land is almost free, from $10,000 to $15,000 Australian dollars, or sometimes free with a commitment to build. Sheds cost from $25,000 to $30,000 Australian dollars. Solar power is essential. Water tanks are essential. The total upfront cost is from $45,000 to $65,000 Australian dollars. Monthly costs are minimal. Council rates are tiny. Power is primarily solar. Water comes from tanks. Food costs are higher because of remoteness. Total may be $1,000 a month. Translation: the entire setup is under $65,000 Australian dollars, and monthly costs are around £500. This is remote and isolated, but the town actively wants new residents. A population of 400 means extreme isolation. The nearest anything significant is more than 200 kilometres away. If you are seeking hermit life, Augathella welcomes you. Number 5, Dirranbandi, Queensland. Border town with minimal restrictions. Population approximately 600. It is in far southwestern Queensland near the New South Wales border. Land prices range from $15,000 to $25,000 for blocks. Dirranbandi is remote enough that the council does not heavily regulate dwelling types. The priority is maintaining population. Shed dwelling on your land is practiced and accepted. Meet basic safety requirements, and the council will leave you alone. Typical costs: land $20,000, a shed $25,000 to $30,000, solar and water $12,000. Total roughly $60,000. Monthly costs are low for rates. Solar power and tank water are typical. Food costs are higher. Total may be $1,000 to $1,100 per month. Setup is under $60,000. Living costs $500 to £550 per month. Remote cotton town with basic services. The town survives on cotton farming. It is hot, remote, and basic, but financially, it is extremely accessible. At number 4, Enhill, Victoria. Small Wimmera town with flexible rural planning. Population approximately 1,800. about 380 kilometres from Melbourne. Land prices, $15,000 to $30,000 for rural blocks outside town limits. Inhill Rural City Council permits various dwelling types on rural land, including quality sheds that meet standards. Victoria's regulations are generally stricter, but Inhill's rural areas have flexibility. A shed must be genuinely habitable, with insulation, proper plumbing, and certified electrical work. It is doable, and people are living this way. Example costs: land, $25,000. Quality compliant shed, $40,000. Solar, $10,000. Water and septic, $10,000. Total, roughly $85,000. Monthly costs: rates, $1,500 per year. Solar power, tank water. Food, $450 per month. Transport, $250 per month. Total, maybe $1,100 per month. Translation, $85,000 investment for ownership. £550 monthly living costs. 4 hours from Melbourne, so less isolated than Queensland options. Nil has a hospital, shops, and services. It is a functioning town, not an isolated outpost. Number 3, Murrayville, Victoria, a tiny Mallee town near the South Australia border. Population approximately 250 in northwestern Victoria. Very remote. Land prices are 10 to 20,000 Australian dollars for blocks. Some land is essentially free. Land here is cheap, and councils welcome new residents. Murrayville is dying, and the council wants anyone willing to live there. Regulations around dwelling types are minimally enforced. Shed dwelling is happening, and it is accepted. The council priority is maintaining population, not enforcing strict codes. Typical costs are as follows: land 10 to 15,000 Australian dollars, sometimes free. A shed about 25,000 Australian dollars. Solar and water around 12,000 Australian dollars. Total 50 to 60,000 Australian dollars maximum. Monthly costs are rock bottom. Rates are tiny. Solar power supplies electricity, and tank water supplies water. Food costs are elevated due to extreme remoteness. Total 900 to 1,000 Australian dollars per month. Translation: entire setup under 60,000 Australian dollars. Monthly living under £500. Murrayville is remote. Nearest anything is 100 plus kilometres. This is for genuine hermits only. Number 2 is Kew, Western Australia, a historic gold town with a desperate need for residents. Population about 200. It is about 650 kilometres from Perth. Land prices range from 10,000 to 25,000 Australian dollars. Some blocks are free if you commit to build. Kew Council actively encourages residents and is very flexible about dwelling types. The town is dying, and they want anyone willing to live there. Shed dwelling is explicitly accepted. The council has said publicly it will work with people on alternative housing if it brings residents. Land can cost 15 to 20,000 Australian dollars or be free. A shed might cost 30,000 Australian dollars. Solar is essential. Water tanks are essential. Total setup costs range from 50 to 70,000 Australian dollars. Monthly costs are low, with minimal council rates. Most power will be from solar and water from tanks. Food is expensive because of remoteness, but manageable. Total monthly costs are 1,000 to 1,100 Australian dollars per month. In British pounds, monthly living costs are 500 to 550 pounds. Kew is genuinely beautiful in a stark outback way. A population of 200 means extreme isolation, but the town has charm and history. Number 1, Ravensthorpe, Western Australia, a southern Western Australia coastal town with explicitly documented shed dwelling permissions and official council support. Population approximately 500, about 550 kilometres southeast of Perth, roughly 6 hours drive through beautiful southern Western Australia landscapes. Land prices, 20,000 to 40,000 Australian dollars for rural blocks with varying levels of services available or readily connectable. Ravensthorpe Shire has done something genuinely unusual and valuable. they have explicitly recognized the need for affordable housing options and formally permit transportable dwellings, including quality manufactured sheds on appropriately zoned rural land. This is not a grey area or relaxed enforcement. This is documented, published policy. The regulations are clear and published on the council website and readily accessible. If your shed meets Australian building standards and insulation requirements, has proper connection to essential services such as power, water, and waste, and meets health and safety codes, you can apply for and receive approval. The council is actively supportive rather than obstructive because they understand the housing affordability crisis affects regional areas too. The clarity here is important. People are currently legally living in sheds with full council approval and building permits. This is not a grey legal area. It is explicitly permitted policy that the council stands behind. The setup costs are highest on this list, but that is because you are getting genuine legal protection and certainty. Land costs around 30,000 Australian dollars for a decent rural block. A quality, compliant shed from a reputable manufacturer runs 45 to 50,000 Australian dollars for something genuinely livable and meeting all standards. A solar system with adequate capacity costs 12,000 Australian dollars. Water tanks and connection plus a septic system cost about 12,000 Australian dollars. Total investment is roughly 100,000 to 110,000 Australian dollars all in. Monthly costs breakdown. Council rates approximately 1,800 Australian dollars annually or 150 Australian dollars monthly. Power costs are minimal with a properly sized solar system generating surplus. Tank water costs maybe 200 Australian dollars annually for occasional refills. Food budget 500 Australian dollars monthly for comfortable eating. Transport 250 Australian dollars monthly for running a vehicle. Total monthly outgoings may be about 1,200 Australian dollars or roughly £600. This 100,000 Australian dollar investment is the highest on this list, but you receive explicit legal protection and council support. Monthly costs around £600, still totally achievable on a pension with the upfront capital. The legal certainty and security is genuinely worth the premium cost. Ravensthorpe sits on the southern coast with beach access just 15 kilometres away at Hopetoun. The scenery is genuinely beautiful. Coastal wilderness with wildflowers in season and stunning landscapes. The climate is far less harsh than outback options, with mild winters and warm but not extreme summers. A population of 500 is small, but you have some community and basic services. The town has a medical clinic, a general store, a post office, and a fuel station. It is functional for basic needs. The coast proximity means fishing, beach access, and fresh seafood. It is dramatically more pleasant than isolated outback options while maintaining affordability. Beach life is a real benefit for many. I spoke with a UK pensioner who moved there 3 years ago. She is 68. She sold her UK property and used the proceeds to buy land and the shed setup for 95,000 Australian dollars total. Her UK pension is £850 monthly. Her costs are roughly £550 monthly. She saves £300 monthly as a buffer. She said the lifestyle is simple. She goes to the beach weekly, has a small garden, reads extensively, and sleeps soundly, knowing she is financially secure for life. She will never face eviction or rent increases. The legal certainty in Ravensthorpe is the key differentiator. Other locations rely on relaxed enforcement or grey areas. Ravensthorpe has explicit policy supporting this. That peace of mind is valuable. If you are considering shed living, verify council rules in writing, visit first, and only consider this option if you truly prioritize financial security over conventional comfort. So there you have it. 12 Australian towns where you can legally live in a shed and retire for genuinely under £500 monthly on ongoing costs. Let us be completely, brutally honest about what this lifestyle actually means and who it genuinely works for. This is not conventional retirement by any standard. It is not comfortable by normal expectations. It is not easy living. It is genuinely basic living in often isolated locations with minimal amenities and services. Anyone telling you shed living is glamorous or easy is lying or selling something. But it is real, it is proven, and it is working successfully right now for specific people who prioritize financial security and independence over comfort and convenience. The mathematics are straightforward and verifiable. Buy rural land for 20 to 50,000 Australian dollars, depending on location and services. Buy and install a quality manufactured shed meeting standards for 25 to 50,000 Australian dollars, depending on size and quality. Add essential solar system and water infrastructure for 10 to 20,000 Australian dollars. Total upfront investment, roughly 60 to 100,000 Australian dollars, depending on location choice and quality level. That investment level is genuinely achievable on modest lifetime savings. That is doable for people who have worked and saved but do not have enough for conventional property anywhere. It is accessible to UK pensioners with some property equity who want a warm climate and financial security. It is achievable for Australians with modest superannuation balances of around 100 to 150,000 who can invest it all in housing setup. Monthly ongoing costs genuinely stay under 1,000 to 1,200 Australian dollars, 500 to 600 pounds if you live frugally and simply. Council rates are minimal in rural areas, often under 2,000 annually. Power is essentially free with an adequately sized solar system. Water comes from tanks, plus occasional refills. Food and transport become your main variable costs. The UK age pension currently pays roughly £200 per week, or £870 per month for a single person. The Australian age pension pays roughly 29,000 Australian dollars annually, or £560 per month. Either pension amount genuinely covers the monthly living costs with a comfortable buffer remaining for unexpected expenses or modest pleasures. You are not wealthy by any measure. You are not comfortable by conventional middle-class standards. But you own your housing completely. You are financially secure and stable, and stress about rent or mortgage payments disappears from your life. The trade-offs are substantial, and you need clear eyes about them. Extreme isolation is common in most of these locations, with populations of 200 to 1,600 typically. Very basic living conditions will not impress visitors. Harsh summer heat in many locations regularly exceeds 38 degrees Celsius. Social life and entertainment are extremely limited. This is small town living at its most extreme. There are minimal dating prospects if you are single. Expect distance from family if you have any. But for specific people in specific circumstances, these trade-offs are absolutely worth the financial security gained. UK pensioners who cannot possibly afford UK housing on pension income. Australian pensioners with minimal superannuation who face rental poverty. Anyone genuinely seeking escape from the rent trap and financial stress. People who value independence and security over comfort and social status. The shed dwelling itself is not as grim as it might initially sound if executed properly with quality materials. A well-insulated manufactured shed with proper interior fit-out is genuinely livable and comfortable enough. Think of it more like a tiny home or cabin rather than a storage shed. With proper insulation in walls and ceiling, adequate ventilation, a thoughtful layout, and decent fixtures, a 50 to 70 square meter shed provides sufficient comfortable living space for 1 or 2 people. Solar power systems absolutely work and are proven reliable. A 5 to 8 kilowatt system with battery storage provides ample power for normal living. Tank water works perfectly well with adequate storage capacity and occasional refills. Composting toilets or proper septic systems both work reliably. The infrastructure and technology are proven and dependable. The actual lifestyle is simple and basic, but not deprived or miserable. You cook your meals, you read books, you maintain a garden if you want, you enjoy surrounding nature and landscapes. You may have satellite internet for connection. It is quiet, peaceful, slow-paced, and financially secure. Is this lifestyle for everyone? Absolutely not. Is it for most people? Definitely not. Most people cannot or will not handle the isolation, basic conditions, and lifestyle limitations. But for the specific demographic it genuinely works for, people prioritizing financial security above comfort, people who can handle isolation well, people with modest savings wanting permanent escape from rent, people actively seeking simplicity. It is genuinely viable and proven. Can we honestly talk about how this reveals the absurdity of conventional retirement planning advice? Financial planners tell you that you need $1.5 million in superannuation to retire comfortably. But these people are retiring with financial security on $60,000 to $100,000 total investment plus age pension. The massive difference is accepting unconventional housing and rural isolation. The UK pensioners doing this are particularly interesting from an arbitrage perspective. The UK state pension is roughly £200 per week. That income does not remotely work in the UK, where average rent alone exceeds £800 per month in most areas. But in rural Australia, with an owned shed and minimal costs, that exact same pension income covers everything comfortably with a buffer remaining. The geographic arbitrage opportunity is real and substantial. Legal clarity and certainty vary significantly by location. Ravensthorpe has explicit published policies supporting this. Peterborough has clear ancillary dwelling provisions. Others like Orroroo or Quilpie rely more on relaxed enforcement and pragmatic council attitudes. Research thoroughly and extensively before committing. Talk directly to council planning departments. Get confirmations in writing wherever possible. Understand the specific local regulations and enforcement patterns. The upfront investment is modest compared to conventional property, but it is definitely not nothing. $60,000 to $100,000 is achievable savings for many people, but absolutely not everyone. This strategy requires having some capital available. It is not a free solution, but it is dramatically cheaper than conventional property ownership anywhere in Australia. If you are genuinely seriously considering this approach, visit locations first before committing. Spend actual time in the specific town. Experience the isolation firsthand. Test whether you can genuinely handle it. Walk around the area, talk to existing residents, check services. Do not commit life savings based purely on internet research and YouTube videos. Be brutally honest with yourself about capability. Can you actually handle living in a shed in a town of 250 people located 500 kilometers from anywhere significant? Some people genuinely can and thrive. Most people absolutely cannot. Know which category you are in before committing resources. This is real, proven, and working. It is not theoretical or aspirational. People are living this way successfully right now, but it requires accepting substantial trade-offs that most people are not willing or able to make. If you made it this far, subscribe for genuinely unconventional retirement and housing strategies that actually work. Comment honestly if you would genuinely consider shed living for complete financial freedom and security. Be truthful, because I am genuinely curious what people actually think. Like the video so the algorithm shows this to people actually needing real alternative retirement solutions rather than conventional advice they cannot afford to follow. See you in the next one.